Hello there, and welcome to a brand spanking new episode of the Melanin Mayhem podcast, hosted by your favorite country girl, Renee Davis. If this is your first time kicking it with the Mayhem crew, well, hello to you too, Sugarfoot. You might want to go get you a lottery ticket or something because, you picked a winner today, baby. Let me tell you, Melanin Mayhem every Wednesday is going to bring you the story of some of the most heinous, I'm talking diabolical, y'all, and downright negacious crimes committed by some melanated baddies that you may have no knowledge of. And if you have heard the story of our mayhem maker, I can promise you this, you ain't heard the story the way I'ma tell it, baby. Honey, because the country girl is a one-woman band on a mission to change mindsets, baby. You see, my goal in life is to dispel this myth that there are certain types of crimes that black people don't commit. Because, honey, we've been committing serial shenanigans since Adam and Eve got kicked out the garden. Don't believe the hype, or you might fuck around and find out the hard way that the melanated been body. So go ahead and get comfortable and prepare to be infotained. Okay, now that I've been the good hostess with the mostest, it's time for a little PDA with my boo things. The hot sauce and honey on my chicken. Peanut butter to my jelly. Hey, New White Nation. Happy Black History Month, y'all. I hope February has been treating you right. I myself have been running around this mug like a chicken with my head cut off. My schedule is just all over the place, y'all. It's just not enough hours in the day to do all of the things that need to be done. And I got to get it down because I need to get my schedule just right because I want to be able to offer some subscriptions. And I've heard you tell me that you want more. And I promise y'all I'm getting on the good foot. But honey, it's all I can do right now to keep this thing coming out on time on Wednesday. Now, and I'm thinking for the subscription, I don't know, based on what y'all been telling me, something like releasing the episode earlier for those who subscribe, as well as offering some cases that, I don't bring to Melanin Mayhem, but that's really good information that I love to tell y'all about some shit that I done heard about. You know what I'm saying? And I've also, like I said a couple of episodes ago, I've been getting my writing on. You know what I'm saying? Your girl has been feeling real creative lately. I don't know, but I'm getting it right and polishing it up and trying to build up a library so that when I do launch, it's not me trying to do 15 things at once every week. Okay? But just know your girl is in the kitchen. All the eyes is on, baby. I got pots overflowing in this mug. and the Virgo in me ain't letting nothing come out until it's just right. But just know it's coming, baby. Okay, now let's see. As far as church announcements, other than that, we pretty quiet right now. I'm still looking into some things for Essence. I've never been and I want to go. And if I'm going to go, I want to do something, podcast related. And so I've been reaching out to a couple of cafes and whatnot. I got a little cute something in my head. I'm gonna see if I can't go down to New Orleans and make something work. More details to follow about that. Let me know if y'all going to Essence too. Any first timers? Let me know about the OGs who can tell me where to go and what to do. Because again, never have I done Essence. I supposed to went to New Orleans this weekend, but it would happen to fall on Valentine's, so that was out. Can't be creeping off and shit, but whatever. Can't be going off, get my Mardi Gras on the holidays. So I stayed home. Anyway, that's it as far as I have this week for church announcements. So let's go on ahead and get into why we come every week so faithfully. Today's story is a blast from the past. I love me some good vintage tea, and it fits so perfectly for Black History Month because y'all, I ain't never in the history of never seen the shit I'm about to tell y'all about today. Today's story of prolificness isn't necessarily about the crime It's what happened after the crime. Y'all, I fucked around and stumbled upon some real black historical shit. Like first ever and since once in a lifetime type of situations. No joke, y'all. Man, my flabber is gasted, darling. Pearls is clutched and mouth is hanging open type of history. The dude I got for you today, make no mistake, he trifling in a motherfucker. He a mayhem maker, all right. No doubt about it. The crime that set it off, though, was as heinous and depraved as any that we have discussed on this here podcast, and even more so because it involved a minor. Now, we don't have much background at all because, like I said, this is vintage tea, and I'm talking about from the roaring 20s, but even though this happened way back when usually our stories really weren't being told, oh baby, there is much ink used on this nigga, but it all comes after he showed his natural ass. Let me see. Okay, so I have teased y'all long enough. Let me go on ahead and bring this OG criminaling motherfucker with an unbelievable story to the front of the congregation. This week's Melanin Mayhem Maker, his name is Mr. Will Lockett. All right, New Orleans Nation, let's jump right into this tale of foolishness and fuckery, shall we? Now, Peter Kimbrough was born, we think, in May of 1888. Now, y'all know I have no idea who his mother and father were, you know, the whole 1888 of it all. And you probably wondering, who the hell is Peter Kimbrough? I thought we were talking about a dude named Will Lockett. Yeah, you on your shit, New Orleans Nation. You heard me right. You see, our mayhem maker's actual legal government name was Petrie Kimbrough. I'm thinking the spelling of the time, I think it's Peter, but we're going to go with Petrie Kimbrough. Petrie. Petrie, right? Not Peter, Petrie. Well, I'm going to tell you in a little bit how we get from Petrie to Will, but just know, for the majority of his life, Petrie was buried and gone. So we're going to talk about what Will Lockett did, and then in the end, I'm going to tie it all up with a little bow, okay? Will Lockett, don't know anything about his background, but I do know that he served in the Army and he was in World War I. He got discharged from the Army in May of 1919. Now, a veteran, right? But still a Negro in the 20s in Kentucky of it all, you know, the South. And so Will had a little bit of a rap sheet, yeah, not anything really major. Bootlegging, you know, you gotta remember in the 20s alcohol was outlawed, you know, the whole prohibition of it all. And he also had a charge for insulting a white woman, you know, again, the 1920s of it all, as well as possession of some shit that didn't belong to him. You know, minor shit compared to what he would eventually get his name in the papers for. Now, at some point in time, Will was married to a woman, her name unknown, but when this story actually begins, Will Lockett has recently returned home from serving in the war and trying to figure out what his next move is. Okay, so let's jump right in. It all went down February 4th, 1920 in South Elkhorn. That's in Fayette County, Kentucky. And to give you a little bit of direction, it's about 10 minutes from Lexington, Kentucky. And this is a cold and wet Wednesday morning. It's early. I'm talking school children early. And little 10-year-old Geneva Hardman has left the house, walking to school around 7:30 in the morning. Now it was raining, so she had her satchel and she had her umbrella. And normally she would walk to the schoolhouse with a neighbor boy, but this little boy on this particular day had to stay home and help out around the farm. So Geneva was walking by herself, and that wasn't a thing. I mean, the school was 900 feet from the house, 3 football fields. Let's call it that. But this is the country, and this is the 20s, and this is not unheard of for the children to walk to school. It's straight down the road. It's a straight shot. She just got to walk, and she'll pass all kind of people as she walked, may even meet up with some of the school children, right? Again, this is the country. It's not really that far. It's right up the way. Okay, so little Geneva is leaving out. It's about 7:30 in the morning. But Geneva don't make it to the school building. Now, a few minutes later, a man is walking along this same road, and he sees a hat and a satchel. That's a book bag, but they called it a satchel back then, and a little hood hat type of thing. And good country people in the 20s doing what they do. The man picks up the satchel and the hat, and he takes it up to the school. He's thinking that maybe one of the children dropped it on their way to the school. And this is a small town. Everybody know everybody and everything. So the teacher takes one look at the satchel and the hat and say, "Oh, that's Geneva's. Well, she's not here today. Thank you for dropping this off." And so the teacher gets 2 or 3 little boys and tells them, "Y'all take this down here to Geneva's house and check on her and make sure she's all right." Again, it's 1920s and in the country, and you could send the children up the road 3 football fields away to take somebody their book bag. So the little boys, they run to Geneva's house and they knock on the door. And when Geneva mama comes to the door, they hand her Geneva's stuff and they like, "Hey, teacher want to know how she doing." And so Geneva mama was like, "Well, why are you asking me? She's supposed to be at the school with y'all." And so mama, rightly so, starts to panicking. She grabbed 2 of her other children and they go out to search for Geneva. Well, the little boys, they finna run back to the school. On the way, they stop at Elkin's store where the man who had brought the satchel originally was. It was, the hangout, if you will, the place where commerce took place every day. So it was a hub of people coming and going all day. And so they stop in and they tell the man, "Hey, Geneva, that was her stuff. She in at school. Her mama don't know where she at." It's a whole thing, right? And then they run on back to the school to pass the word to the school, right? Well, the men, they jump into action and they run back to where old boy originally found the satchel. And the men, it's like 4 or 5 of them flower rangers. They searching around and they see some footprints. Well, one set looked like they belonged to an adult, and the other set, much smaller, looked like they belonged to a child. And these footprints, they led to a fence. Okay? But on the other side of the fence, it's just one set of footprints, look like the ones that belong to the adult. The other set now is a drag mark. So they continue following the footsteps and the drag marks in the mud. It had rained the night before, so the ground was real soft and real muddy. Remind you, this is a cornfield. And so they follow in the drag marks, and they follow those to a pile of corn stalks. And they can see a little umbrella on the ground. Oh, it's bent out of shape, y'all. And kind of stuck in the mud is a little girl's bow. So they start looking through the corn stalks, and damn it if they don't find Geneva's body. And y'all, it's bad. Ooh, I mean, any scene where a child has been hurt is terrible, full stop. But y'all remember like The Green Mile? Y'all remember that movie, The Green Mile? I have like watched it this weekend like 1,000 times. I swear every time I turn on the TV, it's on. Well, y'all remember when they came up on John Coffey and he was cradling them little girls in his arms and they was bleeding from the head and all that? It was like that. Oh, little Geneva had suffered a horrible death, honey. She had been beaten and her head was caved in with a rock that was right there next to her body. Blood everywhere. Now, remember, Geneva mama and her siblings was out there looking for her too in this same cornfield. So when the men find Geneva, her mama and them was right there to run up on it too. Oh, baby, honey, to see your child in that state. Your child that was alive 45 minutes ago is not dead in a cornfield on the side of the house. Ooh, too much. That's too much, baby. They moved Geneva's body back to her house and pause for a minute, because I understand that this is how things were handled back in the day. The body had to be prepared and laid up in your house. But baby, ain't no way in the world that I could have been in my house with my baby and murdered the way she was. Oh, honey, they say Geneva's mama was no good, honey. They say sister girl was prostrate, and that's a hell of a word, honey. And it's apt here, honey, because I would have been prostrate too, honey. That's when you're laid out, can't move, can't do nothing but moan. Yes, honey, prostrate. But thankfully, the sister circle of the community, they came to handle the business that needed to be handled with Geneva's body and trying to, keep her mama as calm as they possibly could. You know what I'm saying? But while the women folk was doing that, the men folks of the community was out spreading the word far and wide about what had happened and gathering up to find the motherfucker that had killed Geneva. And so as they piecing the timeline together, they know that Geneva left the house at 7:30. And somewhere along the way, within 5 or 6 minutes into her walk, Geneva had to have run into somebody that overpowered her and drug her into that cornfield that was adjacent to her house. And okay, this is a more rural environment, but there are houses running all along the road. I mean, on one side is the cornfield, and on the other side is houses. Now, they ain't close, but they close enough to the road that the occupants of these houses, they can hear the children as they walking down the street. And on this particular morning, ain't nobody heard nothing. Nobody heard no screams. Ain't nobody heard nobody hollering. No signs of a struggle. Nothing. And we know this for sure because there was a neighbor. Her name was Miss McCubbin. She stayed a couple of houses down from Geneva. And she was outside in her chicken coop that morning from early to past when all the shit went down, and she said she ain't heard shit. And then also, mind you this, when Geneva went missing, she was on her way to school. She wasn't the only child passing down that road between, let's call it 7:15 and 7:45, but none of the kids say that they saw or heard anything either. Now, even though nobody heard Geneva, this is still the country, and people are out and about and noticing things even without knowing that it might be important later. Like, for instance, the men at the store, they remember that a Negro had stopped in that store, Elkin's store, and then somebody else had later seen him walking down that very same road right around the same time Geneva would have been on that road. So immediately, every man in the vicinity of that road in that community, they passed it up. They was like 50, 60 deep, right? Somebody ran off to go get the sheriff, and by 8 a.m., the law, I'm talking about the police and the sheriff's department, as well as the bloodhounds, they are out here ready to find the motherfucker that has committed this terrible crime. But let's unpack for a minute how they came to figure out the identity of the man that was walking down that road that morning. Now, if you've never lived in a rural community, you might not know this, but baby, in the country, rural, whatever you want to call it, everybody really does know everybody. All your kids go to the same school because it ain't but one. Everybody mostly go to the same 2, 3, 4 churches in the area. I mean, y'all, it was a literal community. Everybody shopping at the same store because it probably ain't but one. Maybe 2 if you're lucky, just depending on, but everybody really does know everybody. And so when a new face pops up on the scene, everybody know it's a new fish in the pond. And because everybody know everybody and all their business, you might not know all the particulars of the who this newcomer is, but you know who they people are. You know who or where they stand. You know if they working, you know if they got kids. I mean, it's a topic of discussion. So while they didn't know his name right then, they went right on over to where he was staying at his father-in-law house over off the Nicholsonville Pike, and they got all the details. His name was Will Lockett, and he was a veteran, freshly home from the war. Okay, they even managed to some kind of way get his military picture and pass that bitch around so everybody knew the killing killer that had killed Geneva, what he looked like. Okay, so in the 20s, yes, there are telephones, but not everybody has one. What we did have, though, was the radio and the newspaper. That's really how news traveled farther than far and wide from folks just going house to house and sharing information with the ones that did have telephones. So when the midday edition of the local paper came out, the headline screamed, "Girl murdered by man in county." So now everybody knows we looking for a black man that has killed a white girl first thing this morning. Now, I need you to also know that back in the day, when the media wanted to convey that a woman had been raped, they would say that she was attacked. So in the listing of all the actions that were committed against her, it'd be something like she was beaten and attacked, or strangled and attacked and murdered. So the word is out now that not only was Geneva killed, she was also violated. Oh baby, them good old white boys, ooh, they was hot enough to fry fish, honey. Ooh, baby. And now, in addition to the law, there is a mob that's out looking for Will. Okay, so the law, along with the bloodhounds, they have been tracking Will everywhere that he went. Now, the bloodhounds, they understood the assignment, and baby, they was hot on that ass. They tracked him to the vicinity. The entire, from start to finish, was about 7 miles. And so as they went along Will's trail, they would stop and talk to the peoples in the vicinity and ask them some questions. You seen anybody else suspicious Negro, maybe? And remember, this is a more rural type of setting, so when the people are out and about, they looking and looking and looking, right? The sheriff and them, they come up on a mail carrier, and it's about 9:30 in the morning, and the mail carrier says, yeah, I saw a Negro. He was covered in mud. He was over there on the Nicholsonville Pike about 45 minutes to an hour ago. And so, okay, now the police and the sheriffs, they are heading in that direction, and the bloodhounds, they are literally following the scent. They are throwing up some roadblocks, and they are searching cars just in case this murderer was trying to leave on wheels. So they came upon a tobacco farm, and they talked to some men that was out there working in the fields. The men heard the commotion of the dogs, and they came out to see what all was going on. And so as the sheriff and the police is talking to them, they was like, y'all seen anybody walking through here recently? And they was like, yeah, dude came through here probably about 2 hours ago. What the name was? Will. He was all covered in mud. Yeah, he was really the only one that came through here. They say he was headed towards the Q and the C railroad tracks. Now, these were black men that they were talking to, right? And they acknowledged, like I said, that the man that they were talking about was Will Lockett, because they knew him. They didn't know what he had done, so they didn't really understand that they was dry snitching, because they had no clue that they was dropping a dime on their boy. So the hounds, they did indeed lead over to the railroad tracks over there. Well, some more people said that they too have seen a muddy Negro walking around. They said it looked like he might have been waiting on the train for a minute, and then he changed his mind. He headed off towards this church. I think it was called the Republic Church. So anyway, Will walk this way, and the hounds, they go over by the church too, and then they go back down to the pike, and then it leads them down about 3-4 miles, and they come out to a house. And so the sheriff go up to the house, and the woman that answers the door, he asked the woman, you had any company there? And she was like, yeah, a friend of mine came over, named Will, not too long ago, maybe 45 minutes, an hour ago. He stayed for a while, shot the shit for a little bit, then he left. Yeah. And so, well, the sheriff said, well, do you know where he was headed? And she said, I think he was headed towards Brandon. That's, another little small town community on down the road a little bit. So they leave her house, they pick up the scent, and they follow it to Brandon. But Will didn't stay long in Brandon either. He kept it pushing to the next town over, which is Keene. That's in the western part of Jessamine County. And that's where they caught his ass around 4 o'clock. So they got Will. This is the police and the sheriff, not the mob. So they take him to the county jail over on East Short Street, and Will is interrogated, and he confesses around 5 o'clock. So okay, an hour passes, and Will done spilled the beans, right? But the law, oh baby, they know that the clock is ticking, and they got to get him the fuck up out of there expeditiously, because they know what's finna happen. So the police and the sheriff's department together, they not gonna be enough to hold off the storm that's brewing with the Salt gang. They still out here searching for Will. They ain't heard that he been caught yet. So time is of the essence, baby. We got to figure out what to do with Will, because when they do finally hear that he been yoked up, oh baby, they coming for him. And not to mention, these people that's coming for him, that's the community. This community where everybody know everybody, including the neighbors that work at the jail and, local law enforcement, the ones that go to church together. And the mob will fuck their ass up if they don't hand over that motherfucking killing ass nigga that killed Geneva. So, Judge Frank Bullock, surprisingly, was on some Captain Save a nigga shit. He orders that Will be transferred from the county jail to the state prison in Frankfort. Now, state prison means state law enforcement, right? They are better equipped to hold off a mob of manic marshmallowans, right? And so local law enforcement, they throw Will's punk ass in the back of a car, covered his ass up, and got the hell on. But in the meantime, in between time, them same manic marshmallowans I was talking about, oh baby, they've been down there at the store. The crowd done got bigger and bigger as the word keeps spreading about what done happened to Geneva and all the places that the law has been looking for the fugitive. And baby, eventually word does indeed get to them lynch a bitch ready lice landlords that they got that nigga down there at the county jail. Honey, they move as one, marching like Sophia in that goddamn cornfield. Baby, they rolled up on that jail and they ready. They want that nigga brought out this motherfucker post haste. Get to getting, get his ass out here right now, baby. The jailers, dude named Reuben Cooper and deputy jailer John Foster, they said they ran up in that jail and they was like, yo, you can either step aside or you can get stomped out. It don't even matter to us, but either way, we coming in. They said it was motherfuckers out there in that righteous crowd with dynamite. Dynamite? Like y'all was really about to set it off in this motherfucker. But understand, Reuben and John's mama, oh, they didn't raise no fools. Remember, they know these people. They go to church with these people. They meet up at the store with these people. They understood that this menacing mob of marshmallowans would go through them as disrespectfully as possible to get what they came for. And so, John and Reuben, they was like, look, my name Bennett, and I can promise you the nigga that you looking for, he ain't in it. But be my guest. Search this motherfucker as you please. Y'all. They ran up in that jail. Baby, they searched it from top to bottom, stem to stern. They searched high, they searched low. Looking for the murderer that murdered Geneva. And baby, they was also very pissed to the highest peak of festivity that they didn't find his ass. And so now, Reuben and John might still be in for a 2-piece and a biscuit for playing in their face. But then Reuben was like, look, wait a minute, don't blame me. I told y'all the nigga wasn't up in here. I ain't got shit to do with what they do with the prisoners. That's above my pay grade. All I know, they knew y'all was coming, so they bundled this black ass up and they took him off to the police headquarters, I think. And so Reuben saying whatever need to be said to get these motherfuckers the fuck away from him. Please go anywhere else but here. He ain't here. Gone. Please be off. Be gone with y'all. Well, now that the mob got somewhere else that this goddamn killer might be, they head over to the state police department over in Lexington. They get there, same thing, no Will. The officers at the police station, they told the mob, hey, Will been taken up to the penitentiary in Frankfort. And so the menacing mayonnaise mob was like, oh yeah? Well, we finna head out to the motherfucking prison and string this nigga up. Baby, they said the taxis was deep, the cars and the pickup trucks was deep, and they is rolling. They posse up and they rolled out, headed to go storm the prison. But local law enforcement already knew what was up, so to try to detour the mob, they had put up roadblocks all over the place just to try to throw them off, to hold them up, to see if they could talk some sense into them, right? Some of them souped up salt gang got around them blockades and they actually made it to the road that led to the prison. But check this shit out. The motherfucking governor of the state of Kentucky had got word what was going on, and he personally went and stood on the road that led to the prison. You heard me. And the mad Mayonnaisians, they roll up on him and his crew, which was a gang of the goddamn state militia soldiers. He wasn't out there by himself. Please believe that. But some kind of way, the governor was able to talk the mini mob into turning around and going home. 1, because it was the right thing to do. 2, because the soldiers that had his back, right? Y'all are outnumbered and y'all are outgunned. Justice is gonna be served. Will Lockett is gonna stand trial for his crime. Y'all cannot take matters into your own hands. And these people who had made it this far, they went on ahead and turned around begrudgingly, and they went on home. Well, the next day, Thursday, February the 5th, 1920, baby, they convened a grand jury and they indicted Will for murder. Now, Judge Charles Kerr, he called for a special term of the circuit court to get on the good foot and be ready to hear this case immediately, like in 4 days from now, on Monday. Baby, that has got to be the speediest trial on record. Now, understand that up until this point, this the following day after the murder, the state militia and the local sheriffs, they are providing the protection to keep the crowd from getting the wheel at this point, right? So the following day, Friday, February the 6th, the judge is back in court after, the grand jury indicted him on yesterday. And so he sets the official trial date for Monday, February the 9th, 2 days later. He appoints 2 lawyers to represent Will, a man named Samuel Wilson and a man named George Hunt. He told them, look, y'all got the weekend to get your ducks on the roll because we doing this thing on Monday. So the lawyers, they head off to the prison to go holler at their client. They trying to figure out if there was any witnesses that could try to testify to Will's defense. Nope. Anybody that'll speak on his behalf? Nope. Not one. And so while they are at the prison trying to figure out some kind of defense for Will, Lil Geneva Hardeman is also laid to rest. Baby, they said her funeral was deep, baby, and it was sad as fuck, as of course it's a 10-year-old child that was brutally murdered. It can't be nothing but sad. And because it was so sad and so senseless, it rekindled the embers of the lynch mob that was trying to get at that nigga Will. Baby, everybody calling for calm. The papers, they calling for calm. Y'all, please, peace be still. The family, they calling for calm. The authorities, they calling for calm. The mob, oh baby, they was calling for blood. Honey. And the next day, Saturday, February the 7th, they had a meeting on the town square. This is the mob, because this is just senseless, and yesterday's funeral was just too much, and it don't make no sense that this nigga is still alive and breathing, and Lil Geneva is 6 feet under. And so the peoples was working themselves up. The crowd was trying to get that spark to go set this shit off. And so Geneva's brother, a man named T.L. Hardeman, he's older, he got up and he tried to calm the crowd down. Like legit, he was up there and he said, as the brother of Geneva Hardeman, who was murdered by Will Lockett, and as a representative of her family, I request all of our friends and those who sympathize with us not to indulge in any violence or create any disturbance when Will Lockett is brought here for his trial. The authorities have acted promptly. The man is under arrest and he has been indicted properly, and his trial is fixed for Monday. Peace be still, y'all. Let's let the justice system do what it do. Baby, Saltine Nation was not trying to hear none of that shit. They basically Kanye'd his ass. They was like, look, we gonna let you finish, but we also gonna strain that nigga up. You can believe that shit. It's not funny, but y'all understand, it's the 1920s. This is a heinous crime. And the fact that now 2 days have passed and they haven't been able to get at this nigga the way they want to get at this nigga, the way they are usually able to get at a nigga, is frustrating them like no other, because this ain't the be order of operations. You know what I'm saying? They are usually able to go and string a nigga up and shit, be back to work and on with life. But not this time. Not this time. Now, while they was doing that meeting on the square, Will's lawyer, they made a second trip back over to the pen to go over the case a little bit more, even though it wasn't much to talk about because Will had them confessed. But, they was trying to see now if maybe they could spin it to say that, Will was a little touched, that his cheese had slid off his crackle. And that's why he did what he did. But, that shit didn't fly neither, because Will wasn't no dumb nigga. And so then they was trying to figure out, well, what else can we do? So they thought about filing for a change of venue. No, that shit ain't gonna fly neither. It was time to get ready to put their big boy drawers on and make it do what it do. And so we got the following day, which is Sunday, February 8th. And again, after the meeting yesterday, the word done got out that they don't give a fuck. When they bring that nigga in now for trial on Monday, the crowd of crazy caucastical peoples is gonna string his ass up. By hook or by crook, it's going down. So all day Sunday, the authorities is putting out the word that, look, it's going to be a trial and any shenanigans will be met with excessive force. Now, don't test our gangster. Y'all better be cool. Now, the mob, though, they're thinking that all of this don't test my gangster shit. That's just mean the sheriff and the police department going to be handling security and shit. We ain't worried about them little motherfuckers here. You know what I'm saying? Because it's more of us than it is of them. Okay. So plans is being made. The blades is getting sharpened and the guns is being loaded. It was going down tomorrow at the motherfucking courthouse. Baby, let me tell you something. While these motherfuckers was preparing for a lynching, the governor of Kentucky wasn't trying to hear none of that shit. He said, and I quote, "While I am governor of Kentucky, every agency of the law will be used to enforce the law." And baby, then he reached out to the feds and was like, "Hey, we need some backup for the backup." And the U.S. government was like, "For this nigga? You sure?" And the governor was like, on my mama, we gonna have this trial. Justice will be served. Oh shit. Governor Morrow just grabbed his nuts and said, "Try me if you want to," with his whole ass chest. This man, this governor of the state of Kentucky, has now called in the federal government to send in the motherfucking troops. Amazing. Like, you just don't see considerations like that at that point in time. I mean, hell, you don't see considerations like that today in 2026. Like, look at what ICE is doing. They're not trying to protect anybody. But in 1920, we got the governor of Kentucky reaching out to the federal government to bring in armed soldiers to protect one black man. Woo! Woo! Have mercy. That's Black history. I'm just saying, good, bad, or indifferent, that's some historical shit that just went down. And the feds was like, you know what, we got you. But you sure you want to do this for Will Lockett? The raping raper that raped and the murdering murderer that murdered Geneva Hardman? This who you going hard in the paint for? And the governor was like, yes, indeed. The following day, February 9th, 1920, in the wee hours of the morning, Will Lockett was transported from the penitentiary in Frankfort to the courthouse in downtown Lexington by train. Now, riding shotgun was a contingent of soldiers lent by the army to make sure that he made it there in one piece. Now, they left way before day in the morning. You know, they was expecting him to come a little later, so they beat the mob into the city, right? And when they got to the courthouse, the police had stretched a steel cable around the perimeter of the courthouse to kind of act as a barrier between the looky-loos and the participants that had to be inside of the courthouse. Now, understand, February 9th was just a busy day legally because it was designated as court day. Everybody that had any type of legal shit that needed to be taken care of had the same court date. And now the biggest case of the day is going to be the trial of Will Lockett. Now, Colonel John R. Allen, he was the Commonwealth attorney, and he let it be known, baby, that the only thing on his mind was disconnecting Will Lockett's ass. But baby, outside the courthouse, them goddamn angry Caucasical peoples, they was getting rowdy because they too wanted to disconnect Will's ass, and they was determined that they was gonna monkey stomp his way all the way to hell shortly. Will. In order to kind of quell some shit, the police had went to the pawn shops and took all the guns and ammunitions so the rioters couldn't get to them, trying to keep as many guns as possible out of the hands of the mob. But understand, we talking about country white folks. Everybody got a gun shit. You were just trying to stop them from getting some more guns. So the courthouse is surrounded by the local police and the sheriff's department, right? And to handle the lightweight, they had 400 soldiers from the Army, Camp Taylor 16th and 18th Infantry. Baby, that's them boys that shoot a bitch for a living. And baby, they was ready to show a motherfucker that they was not here for none of the shenanigans. Ooh, my Lord. Can you imagine this new nation? It was going down. Now, Y'all know how a normal jury trial works. Both sides go in and present their case, and then the jury go off and deliberates. Then the verdict is read and everything is done, right? Well, baby, this wasn't no normal trial by no stretch of the imagination. I mean, understand, just getting to the courthouse was a feat in and of itself for the jurors and shit, because it was police and soldiers walking around mean mugging with big guns like it was up. And so now everybody is in place inside the courtroom, and they basically got Will's ass wrapped in bubble wrap. I mean, it ain't a nigga in history that's been as safe as this nigga. The judge kicks off the proceedings at about 9:15. Baby, by 9:20, outside shit kept interrupting courtroom proceedings. And by outside shit, I mean the guns started going off. Big guns, machine guns. Baby, the mob had decided that it was more of them than it was of the soldiers, and they had guns and rope, and they was amped up off that hate and racism and anger, and they decided that now was the time to rush the courthouse and go get that nigga. And yes, they did outnumber the soldiers and the police. They did. It was like 1,500 to 2,500 pissed off pale peoples to about 600 soldiers and police combined. But machine guns and rifles against revolvers and shotguns ain't a fair fight. Y'all, I said machine guns, the shit they use in war, and they using that shit right here, right now on the steps of the Lexington courthouse. The enraged envelopians, they rushed the door, and the soldiers and the cops started shooting, y'all, at them, not in the air, at them. And they started mowing their asses down. Now imagine being inside that courtroom. You're trying to concentrate, and all you hear is yelling and gunfire. Then more yelling and screaming. Like, I couldn't even imagine how crazy the atmosphere was in there. But you know what? They were determined that a trial was going to happen, and happen it did. Now, it don't take all day to do nothing, honey. I mean, this here trial was one of, if not the most speedy trial in America. Again, we talking 5 days from crime to court. And even with all that was going on outside, they got the case to the jury in about 2 hours. But check this shit out. I think the jury was shooketh, y'all. I think that they was scared to get up and go into the jury room with all that shooting and shit that was carrying on outside. So in another extraordinary move, the judge told the jury, y'all ain't got to go nowhere. You can just sit right there in the jury box and confer amongst yourselves and come up with a verdict. What? Okay. And the jury, good shady ass, did just that. They took a few minutes, and I do mean a few minutes, to grunt and head nod, and literally a few minutes later they was like, Your Honor, we ready. Unanimous vote. Guilty as charged. Now we ready to get the fuck up out of here. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. Like this, you would think that all of this is a work of fiction, but it's not, y'all. Check my facts. You know I bring these receipts. Baby, Will Lockett. Amazing. Well, word has trickled outside of what the jury conclusion was, and that just amped the crowd up even more. And now that the legalities is out the way and it's been said that this motherfucker is guilty, the mob is ready to handle the execution. And they surged forward again because reinforcements had showed up. Baby, the papers say that they was deeper than a motherfucker in their goddamn lynch mob. And as far as the eye could see, all you saw was angry white men. Baby, understand though, the troops and the cops, they still there with their machine guns and whatnot. The barricades is still up, and they are urging these people to just go home, be calm, don't make us do it, cause we will. And that crowd of manic Melanesians was not trying to hear none of that. I mean, isn't that how they always act? I mean, them lynching lice landlords was ready to string Will's ass up. And to be fair, in the 1920s, it was not unheard of for the lynch mob to overpower, overcome, and take whatever black body they wanted to disconnect, and nobody stopped them. So they really are not comprehending that whole entitlement and all of that shit, and just culturally what was accepted, even if it wasn't appropriate. I mean, these things just don't happen. If the mob wanted the man, then the mob got the man. The authorities was like, look, not now one of y'all is gonna touch one hair on the head of that murdering murderer that murdered Geneva. And the mob was like, lies you telling, motherfucker, we got rope, all we need is neck. And so they started to bum rush the courthouse again. Baby, 1st Division troops led by Brigadier General Francis C. Marshall opened fire on the crowd again. Machine guns, rifles, just going off into this crowd that is trying to get to this courthouse, trying to get to this black man that killed this little white girl that has just been convicted. And them troops held that mob off. Like, when I tell you, when the smoke cleared, there was 6 Elmer's Glue crew that got sent to the upper room, and about 50 plus that were wounded. Did you hear me, New Nation? All salt gang, including a couple of women. I know. I told you my flabber was gasted. What? In 1920? Y'all, we need to let this marinate for a minute. 6 killed and more than 50 injured, all white? Like, never in the history of racial discord has that ever happened. That being the government actually shooting at white people, killing them to protect a group of black people, let alone one singular black person. And we got to look at this in context, okay? It's Black History Month, New World Nation. Can y'all indulge me for just a minute? Just a minute, okay? Sure, we have had times in our history where one of our ancestors, our forefathers and foremothers, needed the protection of a local, state, federal authority to make change for the protection from the damn Claritines determined not to let us be great, right? Those times were when our people were integrating the school systems around the country, and they needed protection in order to do so. They needed protection to be on site, up close and personal, to literally protect and serve these brave melanated souls that were kicking open doors for our people. And it's not like it happened on a regular. I mean, I can literally name the times in history where it happened. We're talking the case of Arthurine Lucy, who got accepted into the University of Alabama in 1956, and when they found out she was black, they rejected her, and then she sued their ass and won and was able to enroll. But then them thug ass members of the Paper Plate Nation acted a whole ass fool so bad that the school expelled Arthurine 3 days later, talking about they couldn't protect her. She sued their ass again, and this time they permanently expelled her, talking about she defamed the school with these lawsuits. Okay, that's one time for protection. And then there was the Little Rock Nine in 1957 that was integrating Central High School in Arkansas. President Eisenhower had to send the army in to make sure that them children could attend school. But remember, before that, the National Guard troops was there to keep their asses out the school until the federal troops came in and pulled rank. And then we can't forget about Ruby Bridges in Louisiana in 1960. This little 6-year-old girl needed the troops to mount up so that she could integrate the schools there. Like, imagine it. Every day, a 6-year-old girl had to make it through a mob to get to an empty school because all the unseasoned had pulled their children out the school in protest. I mean, can you imagine going to your elementary school where you went to school and you being the only person there, just you and the teachers, and some crazy racist 8.5 by 11s standing outside attacking anybody that's trying to get into the school, especially the Caucasicals that's trying to bring their children to the school. But yeah, we needed to bring in the troops to protect that baby. Oh, and then there was James Meredith, who did what Lil Ruby did at the University of Mississippi in 1962, and the motherfucking Flower Rangers was up there sitting it off, mad at the motherfucker because a black person dared go to school with them. And once again, we have to bring in federal troops. And then we go back to Alabama, where Vivian Malone and James Hood went back to the University of Alabama in 1963, because remember, Arthur Reed had cracked the door open just a little bit and they tried to push it open a little bit more, but the racist ass, unseasoned Governor George Wallace stood his punk ass in the doorway to keep them out. And it took the National Guard to come in to make the governor sit his ass down. Unlike the governor of Kentucky, right? I mean, this is 5 occasions in our history where the government stepped in against the Caucasical casserole clans to protect us so that we can get education. And of course, there were some political occasions where the peoples were protected during the civil rights movement as well. You know, the Freedom Riders, they would occasionally get law enforcement assistance. And I'm just saying, if ever there was a time to protect our people, it was to help us advance our causes of equality. But that ain't what we talking about here. We talking about a black man that did an awful, terrible, heinous crime to a baby, a 10-year-old child. Never mind the fact that she was Caucasical. But in the 20s, that was a sure enough capital crime in and of itself. And this motherfucker confessed to it and everything. And here is the government, the motherfucking government, local, state, and federal, going above and beyond to protect him. Not just protect him, but kill and clear teens in the course of that protection. That shit just don't happen. Like, I mean, let's be real. I mean, we keep it a book, right? New Orleans Nation, of all the peoples, that if some shit had to pop off and we needed to use our protect the melanated goodwill pass, Will's ass wouldn't have been the one that we nominated. This nigga a killer. I'm just saying. It's unfucking believable. They opened fire on them sour creamians and they didn't give a fuck who caught a bullet. And catch bullets they did. And then here comes another contingent of troops. They marching through the middle of town with bayonet rifles. You know, that's the ones with the knife on the end of it. They can shoot you and jug you up real good. And baby, anybody that thought that they was Billy Badass, they caught a beat down. This is like the Twilight Zone. I was so amazed when I saw this story. I had to do it. Y'all, Will Lockett was a murderer, a rapist of a 10-year-old white child. And they are killing white people in order to be able to legally put his ass to rest. Wow. Now, the crowd, they was kind of like me after they realized, oh shit, they shooting whites. Like it's casserole Caucasicals down and fucked up and bleeding and shit. They like, retreat. We got to go and regroup and call for some more reinforcements, because what the fuck is going on? They wasn't used to that. The entitlement of it all. They wanted that nigga and they couldn't get him. Now they needed to go, first of all, treat the wounded, bury the dead, and try to figure out what the fuck we gonna do next. So, the next day after the trial is February 10th, 1920. This is Tuesday. And because them thug-ass Flower Rangers just refused to let the law do their thing, martial law is declared in Lexington, Kentucky. So now Lexington is shut down, and the military is there with big guns patrolling the streets, and they were even stationed by where the melanated people lived so that they weren't getting attacked by the rabbit, raisin, and the potato salad peoples. Again, amazing. Ain't nobody about to get lynched up in this motherfucker if the state of Kentucky got anything to say about it. They got to move Will from the courthouse jail back to the penitentiary, because that's where the execution's going to happen, right? And at first, they was going to do it the sneaky way, you know? But the military don't sneak, honey. They damn near paraded that motherfucker all the way through the middle of town to the train station in broad daylight on some I wish a motherfucker would. And a motherfucker did not try to pop off at all. So they get Will back to the penitentiary on that Tuesday, February the 10th, right? It's the Eddyville Penitentiary, and he's got a full military escort. But wait, this is where it gets tricky, because now a move is being made to prosecute members of the mob. Not only did they shoot them crazy crackers, now they want to prosecute them. Now wait just a goddamn minute, Nay. I know goddamn well you lying now, cause shit like that don't happen. New Orleans Nation, it did. Kinda, sorta. They did convene a grand jury to start prosecuting the mobsters, but they later dismissed the jury because, they felt like, to prosecute people in the mob, it would just inflame the situation even more. So let's let sleeping dogs lie and see if we can't just let this thing just fade away naturally. Well, the very next day on February 11th, Will Lockett is formally sentenced to death. I mean, we all knew that this was happening, but this just made it official. And a disconnection date is set for March 11th, 1920, which is exactly 1 month later. Now, Lexington, they would stay under martial law for like 2.5 weeks. The last soldier pulled out on February 22nd, 1920, after the threat seemed to be quelled and everybody was ready to just let it ride, right? So we find ourselves 2 weeks later in March 9th to be exact, and Will Lockett is getting ready to meet his maker. They say he been praying and asking the Lord to forgive him, and in the midst of his repenting, he has a conversation with the warden at the penitentiary. And he tells the warden that he don't want to leave here with a lie on his lips, or he don't want to also have somebody be charged for some crimes that he committed, so he want to unburden himself. He tells the warden that his name ain't Will Lockett, it's actually Petrie Kimbrough, or Peter Kimbrough. I still say it's Peter, but Petrie Kimbrough. He said that he was born and raised near Pembroke, Kentucky, but that he dipped and changed his name in 1905 after he raped a white woman on a farm. He said that he knew that they were going to come get him, so he left town and he changed his name and he never looked back. And he said that in addition to that, there was another white woman that he raped and killed in Carmi, Illinois in 1912 or 1913. But he still ain't through. He said that there was another woman that he raped and choked out in Evansville, Indiana in 1917. And another woman, he didn't know if she was black or white, but he had raped and strangled her near Camp Zachary Taylor in Louisville in 1919 when he was stationed there in the Army. Wow. So this trifling nigga has actually killed 4 people in all, including little Geneva, and he had a rape and release. Like, you trifling motherfucker. Now, after he gets all of that off his chest, now he up in this bitch singing old Negro spirituals and shit. Coming down and carry me home. Yeah, nigga, you finna go home. But just don't think you going up, nigga. You was going down. They say in his last hours, one of the prisoners gave him his last haircut and lined him up. I guess so he'll be looking his best when he showed up to the gates for rejection. And then Reverend Foster came in and baptized Will. I told y'all, Will doing everything in his power to be able to cross paths with me at the Starbucks in heaven. Oh my Lord, honey, this nigga was repenting and hoping on a prayer that the Lord let him in the doors. Please, Lord, I'm sorry. What I need to do? A mess. You killed 3 people before you killed Geneva, and you out here raping. You just a trifling ass motherfucker. You deserve all of this shit, Will. And guess what? March 11th, 1920, Will Lockett, a.k.a. Petrie Kimbrough, was fried, died, and laid to the side in Old Smoky in Eddyville Penitentiary at 4:30 in the morning. They say that there was 50 people there in attendance at the execution. And that, New Orleans Nation, is the story of Will Lockett, a.k.a. Petrie Kimbrough, the first and only melanated baddie that committed a heinous crime, was tried, convicted, and executed without one hair on his head being harmed. History making, because usually it would be the other way around. It would be him that got by everybody that wanted to get him. But in this case, it was the people that wanted to end him that fucked around and found out. Oh, my Lord. That's a whole mess, ain't it? Like, the juxtaposition of this, like, we hear so many stories of how our people were lynched and just fucked over left, right, and sideways by all mannerisms of law enforcement and caucasticals in general in our history. And for me to know that there was one time where this was like the precursor to OJ, like OJ got off, but this nigga got saved. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he was not supposed to live too many hours after Geneva. He lived a whole month and some change. I don't condone mob violence, but it is amazing to me that the governor of Kentucky did what he did, the lengths that he went to make sure that Will Lockett got a trial and got legal justice served. Like I recounted them, even when it's for the good, it ain't but a handful. So when it's for the bad, I guess I would say, because again, this is a killer. But I mean, everybody is supposed to get due process. Absolutely. And in 2026, of course they do. There's no mob. But in 1920, shit me. You know what I'm saying? Like, no. And so, like I said, I came across this story and I was just like, I gotta share this with New Orleans Nation because, whoa, this is historical. And for Black History Month, what a good story to tell about something that happened in our history. Y'all look it up and see all of the ink, because it's a lot of stories on this man, Will Lockett. And then talk about it with me on the social media pages. Y'all know how to hit me up. I am Melanin Mayhem Podcast on Facebook, IG, and YouTube. And I am Melanin Mayhem PC on X. The email is melaninmayhempodcast@gmail.com. I do receive all of your emails, all of your suggestions. Trust, I have a very, very, very long list of mayhem makers to talk to y'all about. So y'all keep those suggestions coming, because I got them and they are in my my book of mayhem makers. Okay, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and join our private Facebook discussion group, because baby, it goes down over there. Just search for Melanin Mayhem Podcast discussion group in Facebook, answer a couple of questions, and I promise you I'll let you in. Don't forget the website melaninmayhempodcast.com for all your merch needs. I should actually have some joggers up next week. I know, better late than never, but you know, whatever. This week's New Orleans Nation shout out goes to MBS90, who left a review on Apple. It was entitled Love, 5 stars. I absolutely love this podcast. I found it late, but lucky for me, I've been able to play all the unplayed ones back to back. I love how funny you are and how you keep it real, but also throwing in a little jokey joke. You would definitely be my favorite cousin at the cookout to laugh with. Hey, sugar. Thank you so much for your review. And for sure, I'm the one you want to sit with if you want to laugh at the cookout, baby, because I am guaranteed to make some inappropriate comments and talk about who the fuck made the potato salad. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for, again, taking the time out to drop a couple of words to your girl. It is much appreciated. Y'all keep it coming, because I love reading everything that y'all put out for me. All right. Our call to action this week is for everyone to tell 2 friends and 2 enemies about your favorite podcast. Y'all put me in the group chat, because we are always looking to add new listeners to get down with your favorite country girl. Now, I got to go on ahead and get in this kitchen and do a little sprinkle to this episode. But before I go, y'all know what it is. Go on ahead and stay safe and stay ever vigilant. And remember this, if you don't remember nothing else, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. It's one love, New Orleans Nation, and your favorite country girl is out of here. Mwah.
Woo-wee, Nana, you did that.